Hey everybody, we are at the Malvinas Airport in Ushuaia, Argentina. Our journey today is going to take us to the Gustavo Marambio Base Airfield in Antarctica. The skies are loaded with some rain and beautiful sunset and clouds here as we get ready to take off from runway 25. This is actually my second takeoff from this runway today because the first one wound up with a crash to desktop shortly, well, not shortly after. I had a bit invested in that flight before it went all dark on me. We're going to line up, make sure everything's set. Bring down that sun visor if I could. And bringing the power up. And releasing the brakes. Hold it steady now. Goodness. And rotate. We do have a bit of a crosswind on this one. And gear up. So heading outbound on this standard departure procedure that we're going to use today, we need to get to 400 feet and then we can bank left. No, we're not departing west, we're departing east. And now that we're done with the runway there, we can go ahead and change our heading. And what we're going to do is we're going to bank left and get ourselves set to a 70-degree heading. Once we've got that established, then we're going to intercept the VOR radial at 93 degrees, and we'll head out to 14 DME. So that's part of the departure. Well, actually, I take that back. That's what I used first time around. I used the VOR. And I couldn't get a DME measurement on that, so I switched to the localizer, which I am getting DME, so I can get our distance from the localizer now. 14 miles, nautical miles. And bringing that power back and the prop back to about 91%. And the only thing I'm noticing here is the course deviation is in the wrong direction. So something's goofed up here. I think that even trying to align to it that way, I haven't passed that radial. I think it's just that I'm outbound on it, and it's pointing inbound. So I've goofed myself up again. And if I look closer, actually at the departure plate, see what the issue is that actually I need to head outbound on the VOR radial, but over on the co-pilot display, what I need to do for the second nav is set that to the localizer and then keep an eye on DME from the localizer. So outbound radio from the VOR, but DME from the localizer. Kind of Frankenstein those together, and that's what actually needs to happen, and that's why I've kind of goofed this up. I'll go ahead and shut the auto feather off and activate the propeller sync It'll also cut off the booster pump. Okay, so I'm getting adventurous here, and I just want to see what happens if I do try to line up to that localizer. And like, yeah, it's not even going for an intercept on that radial. It's or an outbound intercept anyways. It's going to turn us all the way around to the inbound direction, which we don't want. So we're going to switch it back over to GPS. Just one of those lessons learned situations. So once we get back on track with this GPS leg, then we're going to head over to the Zulu 133 or Whiskey 56 Victor Airway. That'll take us south, and that'll be the largest part of our 686 nautical mile trip. We're going to ascend up to flight level 010 and keep it there. This is the passenger version of the EMB-110. So I'm kind of figuring, this isn't an oxygen equipped trip, so we want to keep it within breathable realms. And honestly, looking at the wind charts for this particular moment in time, the higher up we get, we're facing greater and greater headwinds. If we were up at, if we were flying the freighter with oxygen and getting up in the flight level 180, 210, we've got 50 to 60 knot headwinds. At least down at 10,000 feet, we're more like 35, 40 knot headwinds. These sunset trips are great. So the reason I'm making this trip is, again, it's part of my world tour that I put on hold for a little bit. Started off in Flagstaff, wound down to South America, got here to Tierra del Fuego, and then parked it. And at that time, I was flying the TVM 930. And now that I've been getting the EMB-110, I'm switching to that aircraft for who knows how long. I really like flying it. And anyways, it was just kind of stalled out there at the southern tip of South America, waiting for the Antarctica leg, because I was thinking, maybe we would get some scenery down there, or some airports, and it could actually fly into something that was a little bit more detailed, and actually had an actual landing strip to land at. But that hasn't been the case, and I honestly have no idea how long it's going to take before that happens. So we're going to go ahead and make this trip. So setting up our cruise altitude settings now. It's kind of funny, on my controller, I'm moving these levers at the same time, but they're kind of unevenly moving, so I've got to even them out with the mouse for whatever reason. Let people get up and move around if they want. So just checking to see if on or off on that makes any difference on engine performance, fuel consumption, and I see nothing, no difference at all. And I feel like it should. There should be some inefficiency caused by having that active, but unless I'm totally missing something, I don't see a difference. Okay, so now I'm going to do some more testing of the prop and fuel condition levers to see if we get some impact on torque or NG, NH, or airspeed or fuel consumption. And so last time I tested this with fuel condition, I did notice a difference, but I didn't see a difference with prop. So I really want to kind of take those from very high to very low RPM and just see what happens. I didn't adjust them this far the last time.
Argentina 189er, 223 mile, eastbound direct, 1 runway and 25 approach.
And I am not seeing anything with engine performance or fuel consumption difference between high and low RPM on these. And the audio certainly changes. But actually what I am noticing is airspeed is changing. So I crank these up to maximum RPM, and that airspeed is topping 160 knots indicated airspeed. Maybe like 165 right now. And it's bouncing a little bit with some of this turbulence, but generally in that 165 vicinity. Take a peek out there, make sure I'm not bouncing into anything crazy. Okay, so let's bring it back down, see what happens. Really low RPM on this now. I wish we had an NH gauge that was separate from NG. I mean, not the gauge, but actually that it would measure prop speed. But yeah, I see that airspeed's dropping down now. So 155, approaching 150. So I mean, yeah, so there's an impact here. And just kind of center them back up where I had them for our cruise speed. Kind of hanging on at a little bit over 150. Well, it's climbing. Yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. All right, we'll try this, some adjustments to fuel condition, and just kind of confirm what I saw last time. I put them through more of their paces last time than I did the prop levers, so I kind of know what to expect here. And fuel consumption bumps up when we do that. Get a little bit of a tweak to torque and NG. Okay, so enough of that experimenting. Okay, so let's get our navigation set up for when we get on our approach. So we'll set up the 117.0 VOR frequency. Activate that. Okay, so when we're inbound on the Mike Bravo India VOR, we're going to be on the 237 degree radial, so we'll be wanting to set that up. So first of all, let's get the heading bug lined up to where we're heading right now, so we can mess around with that and not go off course. So go to heading. Now I can switch to VLOC for a little bit here and set that. It's at 237 degrees. I like to get down so I'm kind of eye level with it, get the perspective right on this needle. Okay, we'll switch it back to GPS and then we can get back into nav mode. Oh yeah, forgot to request flight following, which probably isn't too bad of an idea, being hundreds of miles out over the open ocean.
Request flight following. 607 112 Front Arena Center. Squawk 2573.
Squawk 257 607 112 tree.
607 112 radar contact 59 miles southeast of Sierra Alpha Whiskey Lima 10,000 feet. Altimeter 29.907.
Roger 607 112 tree.
So, you know, as beautiful as this sunset is, that sun is getting mighty low, big fella. I think I've made a serious mistake in how I planned this. After the first time the sim crashed on me, and then some real life issues that needed to be taken care of, my second flight got started kind of late, and I'm going to wind up at our destination well after the sun is set, even though we're kind of in perpetual twilight for Southern Hemisphere summer. Moon, belt of Venus rising. Yeah, it all speaks to a very deep, dark destination. So I'm hoping that between the lingering twilight and the snow cover, there'll be enough definition to make out the features where the landing strip should be, and we'll be following that VOR beacon straight to it. So just need to make sure everything else is in hand well in advance so that I can concentrate on that visual identification on the approach. One thing I know that would make things more efficient is if I had my keyboard cockpit view settings all in place, because I had gone through a whole lot of effort to set custom views so I could hit F1 through F10 and get my exterior views kind of high up, regular seated position, and then a zoomed in view down the nose. So I had those. I had my instrument views programmed that way so I could see everything I wanted to, and for some reason those keep getting reset. I don't know what the deal is, but it's like, you know, every time I save those custom views, it's like the next day or two later they're gone, and I don't know whether it comes from a couple of restarts of the Xbox or the actual flight sim or what, but they're gone. It's kind of a bummer putting all that effort into getting them just right, and then they go away. So I'm kind of mousing my way around through the views today. So we're flying past King George Island now and getting pretty close. We got about 120 nautical miles to go before we get to the Mike Bravo India VOR. All right, so we'll time to get started on a descent to 8,000 feet by the time we reach that beacon. Kind of trying to glance outside, see if I can get any contrast or views down there to the surface. One thing that's tough is the CDI needle is really hard to see when it's dark in the cockpit. Okay, well, we can start getting things set for our approach. Get those seatbelt signs back on. Everybody's kind of huddled in their seats anyways right now. Landing lights on. So we'll get this heading bug set up for our outbound course. Once we reach the VOR beacon, we're going to head out at 77 degrees. We'll follow that to 8 nautical miles DME. Once we get there, that is. Just do a quick check and be sure that I do have that signal's been picked up for the VOR beacon, so just wanted to do a quick check on that. Now that we're at 8,000 feet, we'll get our next step down set up at 3,400 feet. So once we reach the beacon and make our turn, then we can start to descend to 3,400. So reducing speed to 140 knots now, and dropping the first level of flaps, and propeller sync off and auto feather on, and prop to 91%, and fuel condition to high idle, and hydraulic booster pump on. And it's a beautiful deep twilight evening out there. Too bad that's got to make for an unsettling landing. Okay, so at this point there's not a lot of definition showing up down there in the spot we're going to wind up landing. We're still 8,000 feet up though. Okay, getting down to about a mile from the station now. We'll be having our finger ready here to hit that heading button. And by finger, I mean mouse cursor. Which is attached to a finger on a mouse button. Here we go. All right. Banking left to our 77-degree heading. And starting our descent to 3,400 feet now. And pulling back on power to keep that airspeed under control. Got it dropping pretty fast. I want to be sure we're settled in 3,400 well before I have to make that left turn. So I'm going to cut the air conditioning off for now. Now that we're at 3,400, we'll set 2,800 for our next step down. And gear down. Okay, we're at 8 miles, so time to start our left turn. Lead us left, heading bug. Good. I'll switch to nav mode now and let it capture it the rest of the way. And start our next descent leg. Oh man, it's dark out there. And then set altitude for our next descent leg. And it'll be 1,600 feet. The airport elevation is at 673 feet. Okay, I'm starting that next descent. These are low contrast landing zone coming in up ahead, top of screen. Okay. Working to pick up my visual on where that landing zone is. Seemed to be like a cliff where that should be. Yeah, I'm going to turn autopilot off. Controlling altitude with it is going to be not worth the trouble. I'd rather, if somebody's going to drive us into the ground, I'd rather it be me than the autopilot. And no, that's not what we're going to go after. Need to tighten up the view here a little bit. Peering over the nose. 1.25 miles. We got flaps full down also, by the way. So just this plateau right here is where we're headed, and I'm seeing a slope off on the right side where that runway should be. We've got all the buildings right there next to it. It should be off to the right of them, but if I land to the right of them, we're gonna slide off to the right. It just ain't right. I think the terrain is not built quite to spec over here. So we're gonna peel off to the left. And we're gonna bring it down off to the left of the camp here. Man, there better not be any ditches over here. Get that reverse thrust. I mean, that landed pretty nicely for a sim landing. I mean, really. Let's come back over here. Come back over here to these delightful square and rectangular buildings. Across the frozen tundra. I don't see anybody out here waiting for us. Nobody lit up any flares on that slanted hill over runway over on the side, so hope they don't mind me tracking up the other side of their depot here. Park and brake on. And here we are at the Gustavo Marambio Base Airfield, putting out more light by many times than the entire outpost put together. Yeah, looking up high off on that left side there, that's where the runway should be, and that's a hill. So when we're taking off, we'll have to do some scouting and figure out the best way to to get back out of here and not roll down a hill in the process. So we get our nav lights off, landing lights off, and get that rotating beacon back to center, and inertial separators off. We'll switch auto feather off. And cut the transponder. And trim tabs are centered up. Then PX and pitot heat go off. And cut the anti-ice. And we can release everybody. And now we'll feather the prop. Cut the AC. No, it's already cut. And then we'll move fuel condition to cutoff. Let's disable these autopilot selections. And the cell lighting off. And we're going to leave the cockpit and panel lights on for now. Hydraulic booster pump off. And then main and auxiliary fuel pumps off. And then prop back to 100%. Propellers are no longer spinning, so we can start securing the plane and opening up some doors. And while things are getting unloaded and people are getting out and kissing the ground, we'll shut off that anti-collision light. And then inverters off. And generators off. And then the battery off. Do I hear birds? What kind of birds does Flight Sim think live here? Well, there you have it. We reached Antarctica, and the simulated versions of ourselves arrived alive and well. And just one of those don't try it in the real world kind of things. Definitely don't like the idea of landing there again in the deepest of twilight without somebody throwing some flares down there by the runway. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to throw a like on it or toss a comment down below, and happy flying.